You know, it all began one morning that seemed just like any other, but that day turned my life upside down. My name is Eben Alexander. Before all this happened, I was a neurosurgeon, one of those who believed the brain explained everything. Yet, in November 2008, something happened to me that challenged everything I thought I understood. I contracted a rare, aggressive form of meningitis that literally shut down my brain. The part of the brain responsible for giving meaning to our human experiences stopped working. Tests confirmed this. Tests. Scientifically, I was supposed to have no thoughts, no dreams, no memories, no visions, and yet what I experienced during that time was more real than anything I had ever experienced while awake. And I'm not the only one who says this. Years later, in 2018, a group of doctors examined my case and published a report in a major scientific journal. None of these doctors had been involved in my treatment, which makes their findings even more significant. They were deeply intrigued by my story. Do you know what they found? That my entire brain, including the neocortex, the center for processing thought and consciousness, was completely impaired. In other words, it was impossible for me to have hallucinations, yet I had a vivid, organized, detail-rich experience, so real that it changed everything for me. And that's not all. Another thing that amazed these doctors was my full recovery. They said, "There's no medical explanation for this. People with this level of infection don't recover like this. Something unusual happened." They concluded he had a near-death experience, and that's when my journey truly began. I want to tell you how all of this happened from the inside, but first, I need to share something that might be hard to imagine. During this experience, I didn't remember anything from my life, nothing at all, not even my own name or what it meant to be human. I entered this other place as a blank slate. The first thing I saw was what I later called the vision of the glass eye. It was a dark, suffocating space, somewhat sticky, as if I were underground, surrounded by roots. It was uncomfortable, strange, and it felt like it would last forever. But it didn't last, because shortly after, something incredible happened. A light appeared. A soft white glow that slowly twirled, accompanied by a melody so beautiful it seemed alive. It was as if threads of silver and gold were radiating around it. Then this light opened up, as if tearing through space, and took me to a completely different place. I was projected into a radiant valley so sublimely beautiful that words can't do it justice. Here's a crucial detail. This place felt more real than the world we live in. Everything was crystal clear, vibrant, bursting with color and life. I was just a point of consciousness floating on the wing of a butterfly. All around me, millions of other butterflies flew, creating beautiful patterns in the air. It was mesmerizing. From above, I saw a vast, vibrant green field surrounded by trees that seemed to pulse with energy. There were rivers, waterfalls, lakes so blue they looked magical, and people, many people, dancing, jumping, smiling. Dogs ran around, children played, and an infectious joy filled the air. The most remarkable thing was that floating in the sky were spheres of light, spiritual beings I later called angelic hearts. They sang hymns and melodies so powerful they seemed to penetrate my very soul. It felt like I was home, a true sanctuary where the soul could rest and remember who it truly is. The most beautiful part was that I wasn't alone in this place. Someone was with me, a young woman. She never said a word. She didn't need to. Yet somehow I understood everything. It was as if her heart was directly connected to my mind. We communicated silently, yet with great power. And there, in that perfect connection, she shared a message that changed my entire life. A message that I believe is the real reason why I returned to this world. She told me, "You are deeply loved, you are important, you are safe, you don't have to be afraid, and above all, you can't make any mistakes." And as strange as it may seem, in that place, It all made perfect sense. The love there was so pure, so strong, that it was impossible not to feel that everything was exactly as it should be. Compassion, kindness, and forgiveness were not just beautiful ideas, they were the very foundation of that reality. Everything there revolved around this, and you know what I realized after all that? This is why so many people who have near-death experiences come back changed. They become more loving, more spiritually connected, and often they distance themselves from religious conflicts. Because over there, on the other side, what truly matters is love. It doesn't matter what your religion is. What counts is how much you love, how much you forgive, how much you accept others. Over there, you understand that we are all in the same boat. There is no separation. That valley where I was, it wasn't the final destination. It was just the beginning, a starting point. Because immediately after, something even more magnificent happened. Those beings of light, whom I called angelic hearts, opened a new portal for me. And there, everything began to change again. Suddenly, I was in a place I called the core. A space beyond all understanding, a place where all doubts disappear, where all opposites meet and make sense. That's where I truly understood. My consciousness comes directly from God, and furthermore, we have never been separated from Him, not even for a second. And there at the center of everything I received a clear message. You're not going to stay here, not yet, you will return, but we will show you many things. And that's what happened. I went through several lessons, each deeper than the last. And that's what I still reflect on today, all these years later. But one thing caught my attention. I was coming and going. I would leave that incredible place and fall back into this dark, narrow vision that I called the glass eye. But there was a way back to the light. I just had to remember the melody that guided me the first time. It was enough to think of that music, to feel it inside me, and suddenly the portal would open again. The music was the key. It wasn't just a sound you hear, it was something the soul experiences, as if every note vibrated directly within the heart. Many people ask me, do you remember the melody? Can you sing it? But that's impossible. There you don't listen with your ears, nor do you see with your eyes. Everything happens directly in the soul. It's a pure connection, impossible to explain with ordinary words. This back and forth happened several times, and with each journey, I learned more. Each passage through these realms revealed something new, and little by little, I understood that the environment itself was part of the message. The very fact that I could move between these worlds already said a lot about how consciousness works, that it's more than what the brain can grasp, that it goes beyond the limits of the body. That's when, as a scientist, I realized something revolutionary. The brain does not create consciousness, it simply transmits it. It's like an antenna, a filter. When the brain stops, consciousness goes on, growing, freeing itself. That was the turning point for me. Death is not an end. It's just a new beginning, a new phase of the journey. That's why this experience didn't scare me. On the contrary, it gave me strength, it gave me a purpose. And if you've ever thought, I wish I could stay in that place of light forever. This world is just too hard. Listen, I understand you. But I also learned that we have a mission here. We have lessons to live, things to learn, people to love. Paradise is beautiful, but it's here that the soul grows. It's here that the spirit evolves. Then came a time when that beautiful music that brought me back to the portal of light simply stopped working. I tried to connect, but nothing happened. I'm not going to lie. I was devastated. It felt like a door had slammed shut right in front of me. But at the same time, something inside me told me to trust. I knew with a certainty I couldn't explain, that I was not alone, that I was always deeply loved, and that all of this was part of a greater plan. I felt this peace every time I passed through the core, that place where everything made sense. Even now, back in this strange darkness, reminiscent of the early stage of the experience, something was different. I felt at peace. It was as if this darkness too was in some way a spiritual home, a quiet place filled with love, with beings around me radiating deep calm. When I woke up on this side weeks later, I could find only one name for it all: the power of prayer. Throughout that time, I was in a kind of amnesia, as if wrapped in a warm blanket. I felt so tranquil that it didn't matter to me whether I stayed there or returned for good. Nothing seemed to carry any weight. But then came the hardest moment of all, the struggle to come back to this world. I remember waking up in an intensive care bed hooked up to a ventilator, trying to breathe on my own. When they finally removed the tube, my first word was a simple, sincere, "Thank you." The first moments afterward are still a bit hazy for me, but my sister Felicia told me something I'll never forget. She said that in that hospital, everyone thought I wasn't coming back, that I was already gone. But suddenly, there I was. Even more impressively, within hours, I was already sitting up in bed, looking at each person and saying, "Calm down, it's all right." Since that day, more than 15 years have passed, and I haven't stopped moving forward. I've spent all this time immersed in study, working alongside scientists around the world to try to understand everything I experienced. And the truth is, we are at the heart of a revolution within science itself. Gradually, more and more researchers are acknowledging the reality of near-death experiences. And that's not all. They are beginning to take seriously things that were once dismissed as mysticism or coincidence: shared experiences at the time of death, mental communication, remote visions. Everything comes together into a new model of awareness, one that is far more comprehensive and expansive than anything we've had before. If you want to explore this growing movement further, I highly recommend the book Living in a Mindful Universe. It clearly explains how all of this unfolds and how science is beginning to move hand in hand with spirituality. And the most beautiful part of it all is seeing ordinary people like you and me embarking on their own healing journeys. In the end, what touched me most is a lesson both simple and profound. Life doesn't end when the body ceases to function, and love is the one thing that transcends all worlds. I returned from this place of light with a certainty that stays with me every day. You are loved. Even when you don't feel it, even when everything seems dark, there is a higher force supporting you, and this force doesn't demand perfection. It doesn't expect you to understand everything right now. It simply asks you to live with more compassion, more forgiveness, and more truth in your heart. Because every act of love here, no matter how small, echoes out there, in that place where everything is light. My experience has shown me that we are not alone. We never have been. And if you've made it this far in the video, maybe it's because something inside you is waking up too. Maybe it's time to look within yourself, reconnect with your true essence, and find a peace that doesn't depend on the outside world, but begins deep in your heart. If this message has touched you in any way, I want to thank you for being here, for listening, and for allowing this story to be part of your journey. If you feel others need to hear this, please share this video with anyone who could use some hope. And of course, if you want to keep following stories that nourish the soul, inspire, and remind us what truly matters, subscribe to the channel. It really helps spread this light to more hearts. And remember, life is brief, but consciousness is eternal. Thank you for staying with me this far. I'll see you on the other side, or rather, in the next video.